Welcome back to the evolution of horror. My name is Mike Munter, and as ever, I am your host. If you're tuning in for the first time, then welcome. In this podcast, we explore and dissect the history and the evolution of the horror genre by looking at particular subgenres one series at a time. Now, we are currently in the middle of a little hiatus. Our 7th series exploring the evolution of alien horror finished a couple of months ago, and our new series on vampire movies will kick off in the spring. However, over on Patreon, we've got all kinds of stuff happening every single week. And this week, we are launching a brand new little strand of our Patreon channel called Fresh Blood, in which we're going to be reviewing and discussing new releases every single month. So I thought as a little bonus episode, and to give you a little taste of what we've got going on over on Patreon, I would put the first episode of Fresh Blood out on the main feed for everyone to enjoy. So have a little listen. If you like what you hear today, then please do sign up to our Patreon channel, patreon.com/evolution of horror, and for a donation of $5, that's about £4 per month, you will get access to the Fresh Blood strand and hundreds of other bonus episodes. So please enjoy episode 1 of Fresh Blood. Fresh Blood. Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Fresh Blood. This is a brand new monthly strand as part of the Evolution of Horror Patreon, and it's going to be available once a month for donors of $5 and upwards. So what we do here on Fresh Blood, as the title suggests, we're going to be covering everything fresh and new in the horror world. I don't know about you guys, but I find it a bit of a nightmare to navigate exactly what is available on what streaming services, what's new, what people should be watching. So that's where you're going to get all of that information. In this week's episode, me and my 3 co-hosts will be recommending to you new movies to watch on Shudder, Netflix, and other streaming services. We're also going to be discussing some horror news. We're going to be recommending some horror games, some new releases in cinemas and on physical media, as well as some non-horror releases. So there's tons of stuff to get through. This episode, as with all episodes of Fresh Blood, will be completely spoiler-free. It'll just be short, sharp reviews and recommendations. So I'm going to be joined every month by my 3 Fresh Blood co-hosts. Listeners of the podcast will know them well. I'll introduce them now one at a time. First of all, Louise Blaine. Hello, Louise.
Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. I'm fine. How are you? How are you feeling? You've had the Rona.
It finally caught me.
It caught you.
I've not been particularly impressed, but I'm almost free. I am almost free, and I'm coming south in 2 days when I'm allowed out once Scotland's 10 days rule has elapsed. So I'm very excited to be outside again. Oh. I don't really know what air's like.
Yeah,
I've heard it's overrated. So.
It is overrated, to be honest. I'm going to introduce our second co-host now, Brad Hanson. Hello, Brad.
Hello.
Hello. You've also had the COVID recently, right? How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I mean, all the cool kids are getting it at the moment. I am fine. I got over it like a week ago. So I'm back out in the world. It sucks. Don't rate it.
It's not great, is it? It's not great.
Nope.
No,
not
a big fan.
Not the best. And finally, I'm going to introduce my third and final co-host, Becky Dark. Hello, Becky.
Hello.
You're the only one here who now hasn't had the coronavirus.
Never
right?
had it. Never had it, mate. I'm incredibly unhealthy in every other way, but I haven't had COVID yet. So it's lucky because it probably would have killed me off.
Oh, well, good job. Good job hiding away these last couple of months from other humans. That was a good decision. So we've got lots to get through. Let's kick things off with some horror news. First of all, one of the big stories that broke in the last month is that Scream 6 got announced. So we're getting another Scream film. It's gone straight into production. I think it's getting released next year. They haven't messed around. Louise, we've chatted a lot about the Scream movies together. What are your thoughts on another Scream movie coming next year?
I find it so funny that mentally after watching 5 Cream or Scream 2022. I was like, that's fine. That's it. I'm happy. They can finish it there. It's all good. And then the minute they're like, Scream 6 confirmed. Yes, I'm here for that.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited. And then suddenly you end up going back through those vague comments that the cast made in January of, I think Neve Campbell's, though, she said, Woodsboro always has stories to tell. And as long as people want to see them, we'll be there for them, kind of thing. Which makes me think, yes, she's already said yes, if you're making more, I'm in. Despite the fact that I do think the end of Scream was an ending.
Kind of felt like it, didn't it? Brad, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts about? Are you excited? Another Scream film?
Does it mean I'll of course watch 6 Cream?
6 Cream.
6 Cream. There's got to be a less clunky way of doing that.
You'd put the 6 in the middle, maybe, right? 6. I mean, that's much less. That's much less clunky.
Skrillex. Yeah, that's better. I think it would be interesting. There are some new characters that were introduced in Scream 5 that I think had teased being great but weren't fully fleshed out. I'm talking more about the twins or the siblings of Randy's character. I think they've got the potential to run into some interesting and fun meta social horror commentaries in future sequels that I don't think they kind of teased it this one, but I think it would be good to kind of shine more of a spotlight on them, and I think it could be quite fun.
Becky, do you think we'll see Sidney Prescott again in this new one, or do you think she's done?
I don't know, but I think maybe she'll turn up as just like a cameo, like Randy in Scream 3, something like that. Or like, I wasn't like surprised when she featured so prominently in the recent one. I was very happy to see as much of her as we did, but they kind of struck that good balance between like the legacy cast and the noobs. But in some ways, like that phone call that she and Dewey have, that could almost be like a little, just a little sort of nugget on its own. So maybe, or maybe she'll come back and she'll be, number one final girl again. We'll just have to wait and see.
I know. I kind of feel like we've had closure now on Sidney.
Yeah,
Let's see. Another big thing that a lot of people were talking about in the last few weeks was the trailer for the new Jordan Peele film, Nope, dropped. I have actually avoided it. Does anyone here, have you guys watched the trailer? Has anyone watched the trailer? Or have you all avoided it?
I've watched it.
Oh, good. Okay, fine. What did you think? How does the trailer look? Are you excited for another Jordan Peele film?
Well, he's riding off the co'tails of your last season, mate.
It's Aliens, right?
It's Aliens.
Yeah.
It looks fun. I've always been a big fan of Peele's stuff. I haven't hated anything he's done, although I think there's some slight diminishing returns with Us than there were with Get Out. But this has got Stephen Yeun in a cowboy hat, so it's already better.
Ding, ding, dong.
God. Incredible. Louise, what are your feelings about it?
Yeah, I really didn't like Us. And everyone that I spoke to loved it, and I just didn't love it, and I wanted to so badly because Get Out was amazing. So I am obviously going to watch this, especially as I always want. I want scary aliens, scalians. I want I want to be properly scared. I want to feel like, and I'm sure he can do it, I want to feel like that kids' party scene in Signs with the found footage. I want to be that scared of aliens again. And I guess if anyone can hopefully do it and make me laugh at the same time, it would hopefully be Jordan Peele.
I really hope so. It's like a big year for all of these like big horror heavyweights bringing out new movies, right? So we've got the new Jordan Peele film. We've also apparently got a new Ari Aster film. It's going to be called Disappointment Boulevard. It's being described as a horror/drama. And apparently, according to Ari Aster, it's 4 hours long. Becky, how do you feel about that?
I feel good. I feel good about it.
Yeah.
If there's anybody who I'll sit through 4 hours of, it's Ari Aster. Yeah, sign me up. Usually I'd be throwing my toys out the pram like, 90 minutes or bust. But yeah, 4 hours, give it to me. Get it in me.
And then 4 hours of therapy afterwards.
Yes.
Right? That's what we usually would need for an Aster movie.
It is my therapy. It's cheaper.
Yeah, there is something weirdly cathartic and therapeutic about Ari Aster films, isn't there? Brad, how are you feeling about this?
Oh, I can't be fucking arsed with it, man. This is clearly Aster gunning for some kind of awards recognition. He's cast Joaquin Phoenix. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Fine. I mean, obviously I'm going to watch it. I'm probably going to like it. Am I happy about it? No. I'm furious.
We will probably all be there to see it, right, Louise? I mean, let's be honest.
Day one,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Day one, bring
Absolutely.
it on. Benson and Moorhead are going to be directing Loki season 2, which is pretty amazing. These two like very indie filmmakers have fully broken into the mainstream world now with Marvel stuff. Becky, you're quite a Marvel fan, aren't you? Did you watch Loki season 1?
No, I haven't managed it yet. But I've heard really good things about it. I've kind of so I did WandaVision, which I thought was amazing. I didn't love the Winter Soldier Captain America one. And Loki I haven't watched yet. So it's on my list, but knowing that Benson and Moorhead are at the helm of season 2, it's kind of pushed season 1 up my watch list because I want to make sure that I'm up to speed with it before they take over, because I'd be well up for that.
Brad, do you think that we've now lost Benson and Moorhead, like from the horror genre? Are they gone now, do you think?
It does happen from time to time where someone breaks through the glass ceiling and literally spits on horror on the way out. But I don't think so. I think these boys have always down with kind of making a lo-fi, low-budget, sort of spiritual, soulful, sci-fi, horror, genre-bending sort of film. And I don't think that's not going to necessarily stop just because they're now getting a fucking payday from the mouse.
Let's hope so. Louise, did you watch Loki? Are you a big Marvel TV fan? No.
No, not really. I will watch all the Marvel movies, but I know that side of Disney Plus is there. But, when I couldn't do anything else because of COVID last week, I just watched seasons 2 and 3 of Buffy. So
strong.
That's what I did with my Disney Plus time. Weeping like I was 16 over Passion was my life.
Yes, I don't blame you. And then the last thing I want to ask you guys about is your thoughts about the new Mike Flanagan TV show as well. He started filming House of Usher, which is presumably going to be released around October because his stuff usually is. Louise, I know you're a big Flanagan fan.
Stanigan. I am a Stanigan. Yes, he's making Poe. Of course, I'm going to watch that. It's just really simple. Mike Flanagan is making Poe, and I think it's kind of the same way as Turning of the Screw. He's doing quite interesting things with it. It's obviously not a direct adaptation. He's got all his usual people in, but then I also think, did I read that here there's Mark Hamill and some interesting other casting choices? So I think it'll be really interesting again, as usual. And I will obviously, I'm an apologist. I can't help it.
Yeah. Becky, how are you with Mike Flanagan's previous TV stuff? Are you a fan?
So I loved House on Haunted Hill. No, Hill House. That one.
Haunting of Hill House, yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Loved it. Didn't watch the second one because I kept hearing that it was more sad than scary, and that is not my jam. But I'm very excited about Usher for exactly the same reason that Louise says. It's Flanagan doing Poe. I love the short story. So yeah, I'm very, very excited.
Brad, I know you don't tend to sort of dip into television as much as films. Have you kind of kept up with all of the Flanagan TV stuff?
No, not at all. But I am a big fan of R&B. So if he's doing a whole thing about going around Usher's house, I'm well up for it.
Oh, wouldn't it be great if there was an Usher cameo?
Yeah,
I would love it.
Amazing. So why don't we get into this month's reviews? There's loads of stuff to cover, a lot of titles to recommend and review. So we're going to start by talking about new horror movies out this month on Shudder. And I think maybe the first thing to start with is quite a film that all of us quite enjoyed, that we've all seen, which is Hellbender. Becky, tell us a little bit about Hellbender.
So, yeah, it's the latest film from the Addams family, not that one. So they've done like the DPU Dig and various other projects. They're like this multi-talented, mega creative family of like mum, dad, daughters, dog,
ridiculously talented,
so talented. They do the music and the costumes, and they produce and they direct and they write and they act, and it's insane. So Hellbender has literally just dropped in the last week, I think, and it's kind of a witchy coming of age sort of like a bit of a allegory for like isolation and maybe like chronic illness, and it explores things like the mother-daughter relationship and what happens if you try to hold your kids back from sort of discovering themselves. But it's really gnarly. It's super, like, it's tight, and it's got a really lovely sort of indie aesthetic. The music absolutely bangs. It's the namesake of their like kind of experimental punk band Hellbender, except it's got 3s instead of E's. I just loved it. I've watched it twice now, and I have been screaming it from the rooftops. Absolutely love this film.
Yeah, particularly the 2 central performances, right? The actual mother and daughter playing the mother and daughter are incredible, aren't they? They're so good. Louise, what did you think of Hellbender?
Oh yeah, I really loved it. And I think what's always so nice is when you can see that a movie is addressing all of these themes, and the mother-daughter power dynamic, and feeling fear as your child grows up and becomes this powerful force that you don't really understand. And that's before you even bring anything supernatural into it. But it does all of that so effortlessly, and it's funny and sweet and horrible, and the music is amazing. I love the fact that from the get-go, they totally kiss up their faces, even when it's just them playing. And I love the idea of them just playing for themselves and just being I really enjoyed it. The music is great, the band is great, the acting's cracking, and it's just a lovely little surprise of a movie.
It is. I really enjoyed it too. Brad, what did you think of Hellbender?
It's been quite a while since I was fortunate enough to see it, but I was a real big fan of it last year when I got to catch it at Fantasia Festival. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I was going to try and rewatch it for this, but I'm busy.
There's a lot of stuff
to do.
Yeah.
But I loved it, and I think I remember the thing that sticks with me the most is the visuals. The aesthetic, the palette of the film is really interesting, and it sort of bleeds in from the Deeper You Dig, the film the family did beforehand.
Yeah.
Which also had a very unique kind of atmosphere, tone, and style. And I think Hellbender's sort of like, the difficult sophomore record, this difficult second album for this rock and roll punk family band. And I think they've nailed it in terms of its aesthetic, its vibe, its tone. I really enjoyed the sort of cohesion of the film and how it kind of blends these kind of insane visuals with a very grounded coming of age story.
Yeah, I would echo everything all of you guys have said. I loved it too. A real breath of fresh air, I think, these filmmakers, the Addams family. They're all incredible. They're all great in terms of their performances. The filmmaking itself looks great. I love its kind of woodsy, folky, witchy vibe, but it's got a real emotional core at the centre of it, which I think improves it and makes it even better than their previous work, The Deeper You Dig. It's got a lot of style, but it's also got quite a lot of substance, this one. I really dig it. I think that these guys are becoming better and better at what they do, and I already cannot wait to see what they do next. So that's Hellbender. That's out right now on Shudder. Next up, we're going to talk about another sort of witchy, woodsy horror movie called Slapface. This dropped on Shudder in February. Now, Louise, me and you discussed this movie way back in our Fright Fest coverage last year. We came out of that film and we were both quite depressed because this is an intense horror movie. It's one of the saddest horror movies ever made, right?
Yeah, we came staggering out onto the street and had a really sad sandwich outside.
It was a really sad sandwich.
We just kind of, and I remember, I don't know why, it stuck, you got a piece of fruit and you just put this banana down on the table, and I became completely fixated by the fruit and the reality of life and the sheer banal, horrible things when a child in the woods who's lost his parents and lives with his brother who can't really properly look after him, and they have a lot of problems dealing with their anger and emotions, suddenly befriends a horrible creature, and it's not a happy movie. It's directed by Jeremiah Kipp. And I remember he came on at Fright Fest to say, and it's very interesting what he said, because he said, sometimes a cookie is just a cookie. And he said he wanted to make a monster movie. But he didn't make a monster movie. He made a really agonizingly heartfelt story about abuse, which was actually, by the time you got halfway through and went, the cookie is not the cookie. I think you need to go in knowing that you're actually watching something that is Babadooky.
It's Babadooky,
very much addressing very, very, very despair-worthy themes, and it's very well made and it's very affecting, but it's not necessarily what you want to watch on a Saturday night.
Yeah, he did an amazing job, I think, Jeremiah Kitt, but it is a difficult watch, isn't it? Brad, what did you think of Slapface?
Yeah, I really liked it. I saw it at Fright Fest with you guys last year. I think the sort of the comparisons to the Babadook are I think the easiest but also the most accurate way of comparing the film. I think I said something along the lines of the sort of broken homes breed broken boys, and it's like sort of nature and nurture sort of environment, because he's living in a very violent and aggressive household, and the film's kind of positing does that make you inherently a bad person, or is it learned behavior? Is it that nature nurture sort of argument? And I think that's an interesting thing that I think has been explored in horror before, but this is, as I say, he's talking about cookies, but this one makes you crumble a bit, to be honest.
Really does. Becky, you mentioned earlier you're not so good with sad stuff, which is why you skipped Bly Manor. Are you going to be checking out Slapface?
No. Yeah, fuck that. Thanks very much. Luckily, I had you guys to watch it first and warn me, so I know the cookie's the cookie, and it can fuck off.
That cookie can fuck off. It is not a Maryland cookie, which are delicious.
Yes, they are.
This podcast is brought to you by Maryland Cookies.
Other cookies are available.
Indeed. So that was Slapface. That's available right now on Shudder. We're going to move on to another film on Shudder called All the Moons, and I believe Brad is the only one who has seen this. Brad?
Thanks, mate. Much like Hellbender, but maybe not as effective. All the Moons is also a coming-of-age story, but set in 19th century, and rather than dealing with witchy vibes, we're dealing with vampires.
Mm-hmm. So
you might want to keep a pin in this one for your next full main series of the podcast.
Excellent. And you might want to keep a pin in it, basically, for when you reel off a list of additional vampire films.
I'll be honest with you, it wouldn't make the top 10.
Oh, no.
It's fine. It's just it's entirely not my tempo.
Mm-hmm.
It's too slow, too folky, and it's just not my vibe. It's not my bag. I think a lot of people would like it. It looks really nice.
Slow and folky, you say?
So all of a sudden you've piqued my interest, sir. I completely see the value in the film, but you are speaking... Literally any of you three could have watched it and done a better job than I've done so far with this. Instead, only I watched it, and I am literally the wrong audience for this film. But it's fine. It's out.
What's it called?
Go see it. All the Moons.
All the Moons, all right.
There you go. So not Brad's cup of tea, but if you're into folky, woodsy, vampire films, that's All the Moons. That's available right now on Shudder. Another movie that's out from now on Shudder is called The Scary of 61st. I believe we've now all seen The Scary of 61st. Brad, let me come to you first. You actually saw this film a while ago, at some point last year, didn't you?
I saw this at Mitch Harrod's Soho Horror Festival.
Yes.
He paid his own good money to show this film. Such was his strength and belief in this movie.
Interesting. And I saw the reaction after that screening, that festival screening. It seemed to divide people, but some people really loved it, right?
I was ambivalent, but some people really, really liked it. I think I like it more than some of the other people in this chat right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about two roommates that move to a new apartment and realize that this may or may not have been one of the sex crash pads of Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes, it's quite the bold premise, isn't it? It's really something. Louise, let me come to you next. What did you think of The Scary of 61st?
I think I had the same reaction that everyone did when you watch it and suddenly go, oh, Jeffrey Epstein's the big bad. And there's a part of you when you realise that you can't take it seriously. There's something innately wrong with that. And I don't think it's innately wrong in the fact that people shouldn't address real issues in horror films. That is certainly something that everybody, we're all grown-ups. But I do think when you put it in the middle of a very weird, very indie, quite strange and tonally interesting, and I think what was meant to be also very funny movie, I just don't think it works as a concept. And it just, and I was watching it thinking, I know that you want this to be funny at points, and I think it maybe is funny, but it's also absurd and stupid, and I can't get on board with it. I can't take it seriously enough for even the bits that are meant to be horror to be serious. I can't do it. So I'm just watching. You end up watching with a strange sort of sense of why? Just why? This is interesting. I mean, the idea is interesting, but the execution is why?
I didn't know what I was watching, to be honest with you. Like, I was very confused. I there was parts of it that I quite liked, and it was quite bold and weird, and it was so kind of amped up and hysterical. It reminded me a bit of something like The Devils or something. It felt like that's what it was going for in places, or Possession or something. That kind of heightened horror and hysteria and mania. But also, I'm not entirely sure if it had enough to say to kind of warrant what it was doing. I don't know. Becky, what were your thoughts on it?
I did not care for it. I think Louise's word of absurd is really on the money, actually. It's an absurdist film. And I'd love to agree that it had something interesting to say, but didn't execute it very well. But I'm not even sure it had something interesting to say. It's just a very weird little film. But like, after, I know that, because I've only seen it a bit more recently, but I know after Mitch's screening of it, there was a lot of online love for it. And so it's obviously found an audience, and, you know, there are people who get it. I did not get it.
I think friend of the pod, Mary Wilde, I think it was like her favourite film of last year.
Oh my God,
she was a huge fan. It's we should say as well, it's the directorial debut of Dasha Nakrazova, who is she's an actress. She's also a podcaster. She hosts the Red Scare podcast, which is this kind of political, satirical kind of podcast. And I think she's known on that for being quite provocative. And she does push a lot of buttons kind of politically and socially and that kind of thing. She also plays Comfrey in Succession, randomly. Yeah. Mad. But yeah, she... And you know, I guess reading that about... I've never listened to her podcast, but I guess reading that about her, that she is this kind of provocateur, comedian, satirist type figure, it kind of makes sense a little bit. But I'm not entirely sure... whether it had, like you guys said, it had anything more to say other than being really provocative. I don't know.
I can't believe I'm having to slightly be the voice of reason here. I can't believe I can't believe this is going to happen, right? So first of all, I don't necessarily think the film is for us. I think it's for Gen Z, and I think it's speaking in a vernacular that we're not necessarily comfortable with. I think the film is... it's definitely sort of playing homage to Eyes Wide Shut more so than any other film.
Oh yeah, God.
Which
overtly at the end,
which I kind of love it for, but also it's annoying. But like, it's just kind of like this, you go on these like creepypasta Reddit trails of like conspiracy theories, and you end up on these trails and you watch all these YouTubers. I watch shit all the time. I'm like, why am I watching this? Effectively, this film is like an IRL version of someone investigating an insane conspiracy theory, like a red pill conspiracy theory, QA or Anon sort of stuff. And I think it's interesting that it's at least attempting to do to change a narrative structure to be something a bit more digitized and a bit more interesting than just a weird... That film could easily just be like a haunted house movie where it's grief or of sexual trauma or something along those lines, and you take the Epstein equation out of it, and it just becomes another sort of sad, depressive, ghosty type movie. I like the fact this film is at least doing something. It's swinging for the fences and missing 9 out of 10 times, but I appreciate the film for doing it.
Totally. And I don't want to be completely negative on this film. I actually do think it had some interesting stuff about it. I was never bored. I was kind of in disbelief at some of the scenes and some of what I was watching. The performances are so weird, but they're kind of interesting. It's got that sort of old school European art house vibe to it as well. Actually, it reminds me a bit of maybe something that Peter Strickland might make stylistically, right? But I think I still don't know if thematically this movie is as I don't know, sort of profound as maybe it thinks it is, or it wants you to think it is. I think it's more just a filmmaker having a bit of fun with pushing some buttons and doing something quite extreme and provocative, and that's fine, but I think that's all that it is, you know? So that is The Scary of 61st. That's out on Shudder in the UK from the 3rd of March. Okay, now let's move on to some recommendations on Netflix. So we've got to talk about the most talked about Netflix horror film that dropped in the last month, and that is, of course, the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, Patreon subscribers will have heard me and you discuss this at length, Louise, but just give us a little info about the film.
So despite the fact that there have actually been 8 Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, which you and I have watched relatively recently, since the first one, this new Netflix 2022, directed by David Blue Garcia movie, basically erases all of those and is a direct follow-up to the 1974 original. And it brings us a new set of obnoxious youth who love brunch and gentrification. And they arrive at a Texas ghost town where it turns out that Leatherface still lives with a woman who is kind of, she's not his mother, someone that's sort of taken him in at this orphanage where he still lives. And it turns out that he's not particularly happy because they're arseholes. But, you know, so is everyone in the movie. And chaos duly ensues with power tools.
Everyone is awful and everyone gets treated accordingly, basically. And as me and you discussed at length last week, Louise, we both quite enjoyed this, right? I mean, it seems to have really polarised people. We thought it was just like a really solid slasher movie, didn't we, I think? Becky, what did you think of the new Texas Chainsaw?
Loved it.
Look at the delight. Look at the delight. Look at that. Look at it. Look at the face.
Fucking love this film. I rewatched it today. I love it. I love it. It's just everything I wanted. It absolutely zips along. It's full of obnoxious people who you want to be chopped up with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
And Leatherface obliges.
Leatherface is the most likeable character in this film by far, right?
By far, yeah, absolutely. Some of the acting is atrocious. And it, you know, there's bits of it that don't necessarily make sense. I know that there's been a lot of backlash from the sort of from people who wanted Sally to have more of a kind of like triumphant moment. And she doesn't have the most triumphant moment. But then again, she's up against like one of the most notorious fucking psychopaths in horror history. And I don't want people to survive Leatherface. I want them all to be chopped up into little bits, and they all get chopped up into little bits, and I fucking loved it.
2 at a time. That scene, 2 at a time on that bus.
With Sally, it's like it was setting its stall and sort of saying, we're not Halloween. This isn't Laurie Strode. You're not going to get that, like, good triumphing over evil, necessarily. It's hilarious. Brad, what did you think of the new Texas Chainsaw?
It's shit. But it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really enjoyable trash, right?
Yeah. It doesn't give a fuck. It doesn't give a fuck about legacy. It doesn't give a fuck about narrative. It doesn't give a fuck about tasteless backstory plot points that are
definitely not that.
But,
not that.
What it does give a fuck about is cutting people up. And that's what I want to see in a Texas Chainsaw movie. And like, it doesn't, I can't tell if it hates Gen Z or loves Gen Z. Either way, I don't care. What I like
hates everybody.
It hates everyone.
Yeah, we decided it hates the world. It hates
and
the
who
world.
wouldn't? It's rubbish.
Terrible.
Chop it up.
Chop them up. Chop the world up.
Start again.
I tell you what it does give a fuck about is it gives a fuck about like cinematography. Like, it's beautiful. Some of the shots in this film are ridiculous. It looks way better than it has any right to look. It's like, Oh, I loved it.
His little face sticking up over the cornfields as well.
Face.
I love it. I love him.
Hi.
Sad.
I love and that shot of him.
man.
I don't want to go into spoilers, but the shot of him in his little bedroom as well. I just love Leatherface in this one. He's amazing.
I love him.
So I'm sure most of you out there listening have already seen it, but that's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's out on Netflix right now. Next up, we're going to talk about a film called The Humans. This is quite a weird, interesting film. This is out on Netflix as of now. So The Humans. This is an A24 film. It feels quite A24 film in a way. It's sort of. I'm not even sure if I would call this a horror, and I call everything horror, but I'm not sure I'd call this a horror. But it is a very dread-inducing drama, written and directed by Stephen Karam, and it's based on his own play, his Tony Award-winning play from 2016. The whole film is set in an apartment in downtown New York, I think, and it is focusing on this family. At the centre of the family, you've got Bridget, played by Beanie Feldstein. She and her fiancé, who's played by Stephen Yeun, they have her entire family over for Thanksgiving dinner. And it is this kind of very weird, very slow, very awkward dinner party, basically. And there are sort of tensions going on between different family members, secrets, stuff is being said about other people. You've got this poor grandmother of this family, played by June Squibb, who is suffering from with dementia. And everything feels like, oh my God, something bad is going to happen at any moment. And while all this is happening, the actual apartment itself is kind of reacting to what's happening. There are creaks and noises and leaks, and the whole building seems to be kind of crumbling and falling apart around them and around this dinner party as well. So it's this slow burn, uncomfortable, dread-inducing dinner party horror, essentially. This is completely my bag. I described it as Abigail's Party meets Repulsion. There's a little bit of The Invitation thrown in there as well, I think. I absolutely loved this film. Let me ask some of you guys what you thought of it. Becky, what did you think of The Humans?
Not for me.
Not for you?
It just made me feel very uncomfortable, which isn't always a bad thing. And, you know, we've already talked about other films that have made me feel a bit uncomfortable, but this wasn't like I can't deny it's amazing. It's, you know, it's a good film. The acting's amazing. The camera work is incredible. The claustrophobia of, you know, the way that it's shot and the way that the sets are laid out and everything. I mean, it's a very well-made film, but I can't believe I wasted an hour 45 watching people fucking gripe at each other about superfoods. Like, we're about to get bombed back into the Stone Age. That's why I watched Texas Chainsaw again today, because I needed a palate cleanser. I really didn't like it.
It's like you couldn't get more the opposite to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, actually, than this film, could you?
Not for me.
Even though dinner parties are quite important in both. Brad, what about you? Have you seen The Humans yet?
Yes, sir.
What did you think?
I really dug it.
God, I would have put money on you hating it. I'm glad you liked it.
I liked it. What I like about it is it kind of puts boomers in a position of having to deal with tenancy agreements. And that's generally what the scariest thing is. I actually have a little idea here, or a little story / thing, where you can cut this if this don't work. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ring my mum very quickly. Becky, you know my mum. And I'm just going to ask her a quick question, which I think pertains to the
This is amazing.
Hello, gorgeous one. I haven't heard from you for ages.
I've just got a really quick question. I will speak to you properly in a bit.
Go on.
I was wondering, I've lived away from home for over half my life.
Yes.
I was just wondering why you've never come to a single flat or house that I've lived in.
But because I don't want to worry where you live.
That's all I really needed to know, Mother.
Why did you... It's not I don't love you, baby. I do. But if I know where you live, I'll worry more.
By the way, you're going to be on the next episode of the Evolution of Horror podcast. Say hello, everyone.
Hi, darling.
Hello.
Hi, Annette.
Hello, everybody that listens to Bradley. Really, you need to get a life.
Cheers, babe. I'll call you back later, all right?
All right, babe. Yeah, I love you.
Love you, babe. Yeah, all right. Bye.
Bye, babe.
Bye.
Oh, that was beautiful.
That was amazing.
That was amazing.
I knew that would happen.
Because she'd worry.
But yeah, and the film kind of encompasses that, right? The kind of like dread and fear of, shitty living situations.
Yes, and like parental anxiety about that. You nailed it. It's so true. It's so true. Louise, have you had a chance to watch The Humans yet?
I mean, I confess, last night I was like, I'm going to watch The Humans. This will be great. And I'd been back at work yesterday for the first time since COVID, and it was on 3 minutes before I had a micro sleep and woke up, I think 20 minutes later, with them doing the exact same thing that they'd been doing when I fell asleep.
Were they trying to get a wheelchair in through a door by any chance?
That was I think that was probably the last thing I saw. And I was like, no, I can't do this tonight. I will watch it at a different time. So I fully blame COVID and not the movie. I will watch it. It does sound wonderful.
I was fully prepared to be the only person to like it in a way, because I do see how people would find this a bit disappointing, and especially in a horror context. Like, I do want to emphasize it's not really much of a horror. It is just a really dark drama, but I love it. I love a good awkward dinner party.
I know you do, and that's why I was texting you in the middle of it. Like, you love this, don't you? I know that you love this.
You fucking love this.
You fucking love it. But it was just like, it was that kind of excruciating, like, I could not wait for it to end because I just needed to get the fuck out of that apartment.
That is fair enough. It's so claustrophobic. It is, like I mentioned, it's based on a play. It feels like a play, right? I think that the director here has done a good job of making it cinematic, but it is so slow-paced and claustrophobic, so it's not for everyone. So that is The Humans. I loved it. Becky, not so much. That is available right now on Netflix. Okay, let's talk about another new movie on Netflix. This is BigBug. Brad, tell us a bit about BigBug.
BigBug is the new Jean-Pierre Jeunet movie. Obviously, famed director of, that's right, guys, Alien Resurrection.
That's right. Classic.
and Amelie. Some film called Amelie. Mm-hmm. He's come back with first film in nearly a decade. Last film he did was The Prodigious T.S. Spivet, which I went to the cinema to see. Not quite sure why I did that. BigBug is not a return to form, unfortunately, for Mr. Jean-Pierre Jeunet, but it is quite interesting. It's a whole ass vibe. Basically, a robot uprising housebounds a collective group of family members and neighbors in a future. I want to say it's Paris. It must be Paris, surely.
Yeah.
It's got to be Paris.
Yeah.
In this kind of retro kitsch futurism that looks amazing, but doesn't add up to much of anything in terms of substance or what it's really trying to say. It's not saying anything. It's more like just popping by and visiting.
That's a shame. Becky, this director, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, I always think of him at his best. He's really good at balancing kind of quirky humour with amazing visuals, and then also some truly dark, violent stuff too. If you look at movies like Delicatessen and even Alien Resurrection, right? Does this movie achieve any of that kind of magic?
It does the cool visuals and quirky humour, and it does have a couple of redeeming moments. It wasn't like it's fine. It's really long.
Oh, no.
And loads of people in it are really irritating. And so you do just have to spend quite a lot of time with really irritating people. But, it does look pretty. And if kind of slightly slapstick, quirky humour is your thing and you like the idea of a kind of Amelie meets iRobot situation, then give it a bash. But you do need a long afternoon because it's long.
I think I'll give that a miss. Louise, what about you?
It's not for me.
No, not for me either. I'll give that a miss. So there you go. So that is Micmacs. That is streaming right now on Netflix. And that's it for Netflix. Now we're just going to talk about some other new horror movies out on additional streaming services. Of course, there are a whole bunch of other streaming services. So there's lots of other movies to mention. Let's start off by talking about Lamb, which is now out on MUBI. Becky, tell us about Lamb.
Lamb. I love Lamb. So it's an Icelandic film. It was released last year. It stars Noomi Rapace. Did we say Rapace?
Rapace, I think. Yeah.
Noomi Rapace. And right, this one's Icelandic, so bear with. Hilmir Snare Guðnason.
Good effort.
Thanks.
Good effort.
So they're a childless couple. They live on a sheep farm. And one day they find an unusual lamb and they adopt her, call her Ada. adopt her as their own, put her in various little outfits and watch telly with her. And then sort of come up against sort of judgy family, and also the lamb's own very angry real parents. And it's very sweet and completely bonkers. And I wanted to come up with a bit of a comparison, and I'm not sure I've succeeded, but I thought it's a bit like Rams meets Lars and the Real Girl.
Yeah, not a bad comparison. Yeah,
I love it.
It's absolutely batshit, isn't it? And I know we've discussed this together, this film, Brad. I think I even played some audio snippets of your reaction, your live reaction to this film, right, when we watched it at LFF.
My opinion has not changed.
No, well, there you go. So that is Lamb. It's worth everyone seeing at least once. That is streaming right now on MUBI. Right, I'm now going to talk about a film which it has been delayed. It's now not out until mid-March, on the 18th of March, but I've seen it. I'm going to talk about it very briefly. I think I'm the only person to have seen this film. This is fresh. You guys haven't seen it yet, have you? So I am going to be incredibly vague because I think the less you know about this film, the better. But this film premiered at Sundance. It's the directorial debut of Mimi Cave. It stars Daisy Edgar-Jones, who I think people will know from Normal People and a couple of other things, and Sebastian Stan from all the Captain America films. And I don't even really want to say what happens in it. I'll say it's a film about the horrors of dating, of modern dating. And the setup is Daisy Edgar-Jones's character goes on a string of really disastrous dates before then bumping into this mystery man at the supermarket, played by Sebastian Stan. They seem to hit it off straight away, and then not all is as it seems, and one or both of these people might be harboring secrets and other things. It's really good, and like I watched it on a press screener with Rihanna, and both of us were kind of really shocked by what was happening from one scene to the next. It's great. It's like tonally, not at all story-wise, but tonally it feels a bit like Get Out or Ready or Not. It kind of balances quite mean, gruesome horror with comedy, and there's a kind of real kind of cathartic violence in it as well. It's really fun, and it's gruesome, and I would also say it's not one to watch on a full stomach, but it's really, really good. Keep a lookout for it. I'm not going to say any more than that, but it's called Fresh, and it's coming to Disney Plus of all places, because I think it's out on Hulu in the US, so it's coming to Disney Plus here in the UK on the 18th of March, and that's all I'll say about that. Let's go on to a movie that is out right now, and I think we've all seen now, which is Kimi. This is out on NowTV. Brad, tell us a little bit about Kimi.
During the COVID-19 pandemic in Seattle, an agoraphobic tech worker discovers evidence of a violent crime while reviewing a data stream and is met with resistance and bureaucracy when she tries to reporting it to her company. Yes.
So this is the new film by Steven Soderbergh, right? Who obviously, used to do these like big kind of Oscar-winning, like really critically acclaimed movies, obviously like the Ocean's films, Out of Sight, Traffic. Then he's moved into this brilliant phase of his career where he does kind of trashy thrillers like Unsane and Side Effects and Contagion and this. Becky, let me come to you. What did you think of Kimi?
I really enjoyed it. It's fun. I don't know, it's not going to change anybody's world, but I thought it was, really effective, and had a couple of little sort of air punch moments towards the end. I thought Zoe Kravitz was brilliant in it. I really, really enjoyed it. Like solid, 7 out of 10 tech thriller. Really good.
Yeah, good little 90 minutes in and out, isn't it? It's great. Louise, what about you? What did you think?
I really liked it. I think I like that idea of, under 90 minutes. Very, very high concept. Sitting there with tech, got COVID in there, but it's really watchable, and it's about the relationships between people, and she really carries it because it's basically just her on screen most of the time. Half of the time her face is behind a mask, which really, if you think about it, is quite incredible But yeah, I thought it was really fun. The ending was, it was all worth it, because sometimes with his films you're not entirely sure if all of that setup, even though as artful as it is, will be potentially worth it. But I thought it really was. But yeah, solid stuff.
Feels like one of the few films as well that's been made during the COVID pandemic that's actually about the COVID pandemic as well, or sort of about lockdown, isn't it? But which is kind of interesting. Brad, what about you? I was going to mention a comparison to a film it reminded me of, but I think you've already got a great pun at the ready for a certain movie.
No, I really thought it's a great tight little 90-minute Hitchcockian thriller. I called it Ear Window, which... it's not getting a laugh here because I put it in the group chat earlier.
Plus that pun was terrible.
Well, it's really good. I liked it. It's available on NowTV right now.
So there you go. That is the brilliant Kimi. Check that out on NowTV. Okay, the next movie we're going to talk about also isn't out for a couple more weeks. It's out on the 18th of March, but it's so good. We've all seen it. I think it's worth mentioning. So this is a movie coming to Prime Video called Master, which, again, had its premiere at Sundance. And this is the directorial feature debut of Mariama Diallo. And the story, it's set in a kind of very Harvard-esque, kind of posh Ivy League university. Very old, very traditional, and very white. And the story basically focuses on these two African-American women. One is a freshman called Zoe, played by Jasmine Moore. The other is a staff member, played by Regina Hall, who has recently been promoted to house master, i.e. the title, Master. And essentially it's a film about bad stuff happening on this university campus. And it's a film that sort of, it leans into the kind of sort of insidious racism at the heart of these sorts of institutions. There's a series of really awkward, really disturbing kind of microaggressions at the beginning in just sort of interactions between characters, but then the actual horror kind of ramps up. I absolutely loved this. I think for me, this is I know the year is still young, but it's one of my favourite horrors I've seen this year already. A lot of people are making the comparison to Get Out, which I can see story-wise and thematically, maybe there are some similarities. But I also think it really does something very different, and particularly in its final act, it does some really interesting things. So I was a massive fan of this. Louise, what did you think of Master?
I really enjoyed it. I love the fact that it focused on those three different women it really focuses on, who are all having pretty horrific. They're having horrific times at this university, they're having as unpleasant times before the scares as they are when the scares walk up. I mean, I thought it was really clever. I couldn't look away from it. It was definitely one of the ones that, we quite often watch stuff and it's like, I'll just read my phone or I'll look at this and I'll look at that. But I didn't. I was really compelled by Master all the way through, and it's got some great performances as well.
I think it's got and I'll probably do like a big deep dive episode on this at some point down the line, but I think it's got an ending that might divide people as well. But yeah, Becky, what about you? What did you think of Master?
I really liked it. Yeah, I agree with everything that both of you have already said, actually. But in terms of the ending, I don't tend to like it when films are too ambiguous and sort of too open-ended. And this is delightfully ambiguous, I would say. Yeah. It really struck a very kind of effective balance, I think, between suggesting what might be happening and leaving some questions unanswered, and actually just leaving the audience at the end just like, okay, so was it this or was it that? And
what just happened?
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was stellar. Actually, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm excited for more people to see it so we can all discuss it. Brad, what about you? What did you think of Master?
I mean, I'll repeat what's been said. Like, yeah, it's really great. Like, it's really effectively, assuredly, like, it very much feels like Diallo knows what she's doing and what she's going for, and there's no kind of deliberation as to the tone or the message of the film. And the kind of these microaggressions that do sort of blister up and bubble to the surface do kind of really keep the train rolling, in terms of not only have you got this kind of ethereal or uneasy suspense, general conversation is just as taut and tense as it would be in the scenes in the bedroom or scenes later on in the film where things get more spooky. for want of a better word.
Indeed, yes. So that's Master, really, really good. Everyone should check that out. So that's out on Prime Video this month on the 18th of March. We've got one more thing to talk about. Becky, you wanted to talk about a music video. Am I correct?
Oh my God, yeah. So this isn't the sort of thing that's... I don't really listen to modern music.
The youth of today.
The youth. But this was all over Twitter when it came out. So there's an amazing artist who I think the reason it actually piqued my interest is because I was already aware of her. But her name's Tinashe, and she's American. Like she's one of these, a little bit like the Addams Family that we were talking about with Hellbender. She's like, you know, she's a singer, dancer, producer, director, actress, model. Like she's everything. She's incredible. But she's just put out this new video for her song Naturally, and she pays homage to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and this video is just awesome. Like it's just her, it's kind of, it's like a sort of 3.5 minute personification of a sexy Halloween costume. It's her just like covered in blood, in sort of like a sort of white PVC butcher's apron, and then at one point she's dressed as like Little Bo Peep and she's kind of cutting up sheep, and she's just covered in blood for the whole thing. At one point she's in the back of a sort of open like tow truck, just like at the end of the original Chainsaw Massacre. So yeah, it's
amazing.
It's on YouTube. It's Naturally by Tinashe, and it's just well worth a watch. It's really good.
Amazing. Well, there you go. That's the last new thing on streaming that we're going to be discussing and reviewing. But at this point in the episode, we're now going to move into something we don't do very often on this podcast. We're going to talk about some horror games. Louise, you are our resident gamer here, so we're handing this section entirely over to you. Tell us about some new games.
So normally what's going to happen in this section of Fresh Blood is I'm going to talk exclusively about horror games that I have played, either 1 or 2 or whatever I've been playing, you know, anything story-wise or anything the rest of it. But I kind of need to admit that I can't really talk about many of them because I accidentally played Horizon Forbidden West for 78 hours.
78 hours! Me and Brad watched Batman for that long, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, so I mean, I can effectively talk... I mean, Horizon Forbidden West isn't technically a horror game. There are robot dinosaurs, which is wonderful. And the first 15 or 20 hours, I actively hated it because the climbing was terrible. But then, by the time 50 more hours had passed, I absolutely adored it. So that's a wonderful game with magnificent music and fantastic hunting. And also, how much, do you guys play, like, in terms of sandbox games?
I've played Fallout 3.
There you go. Okay, so if we're talking about sandbox games, these are big. I know Brad's going to nod here. Giant open worlds where you can go in any direction, you can do anything. And I think for Horizon Forbidden West, which is cross-generation, it's on PS4 and it's on PS5. But what they've managed to do is create an open world that they recorded almost 1 million lines of dialogue. So wherever you go, everything just sounds alive. And that sounds like a really tiny detail, but it's something that game absolutely excels at. It's got this incredible main character of Aloy. She's kind of found her way in the world and she's hunting robot dinosaurs in the most sci-fi nonsense MacGuffin game of all time, but it's a magnificent thing. So I have done a lot of that. On the horror side of things, Dying Light 2 is also out. That is a zombie apocalypse game, a sequel to the original Dying Light, where the humans are now living in the medieval, kind of a modern dark age, basically. They're kind of in holed-up cities because it turns out that there was a virus and then there was a vaccine, and that vaccine was then used for bad things, and then everybody turned into monsters. So I'm not entirely sure thematically how that.
When was this made? When was it made?
Yeah, sorry guys. Yep. We kind of skated around that when I talked about it on Radio 3. But Dying Light 2 it's much more like your sort of Far Cry style open world where you go and do certain big side quests in certain areas and you run away from zombies. But what's really fun about it, and I haven't played huge amounts, is you've got a parkour is your kind of thing. So you're crossing over the cities, over the tops of the buildings. You're doing wall runs because basically the zombies are on the ground, and you basically play the floor is lava, but the floor is zombies. So that's basically the principle of that game. And the one game that I did have at the top of this list to talk about, and I will be talking about it fully next month, but because I've played half of it, it's a game called Martha is Dead, which is a story-focused game set in occupied Italy in 1944. And it has been controversial because it was censored by PlayStation for violence and abuse and some face peeling was why it's been
yummy.
So I've played half of it, but I do want to give, before I give my opinion on it, it's not like it's a full narrative game, so it's not like I can say, yeah, I've played around in the open world and it's fun. It's a very sort of focused narrative, about 4 or 5 hours, which doesn't sound like terribly much compared to my 78, but I do need to give it that time, which I would have done my homework if hunting dinosaurs hadn't been so, frankly, appealing.
I mean, that has to take priority, surely.
Of course.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yes, so next time there will be far more focus and literal instead of literal focuses in Horizon Forbidden West.
I love it. Well, there's some good recommendations there anyway. So that's Horizon Forbidden West, Dying Light 2, and Martha is Dead as well.
A potential recommendation for Martha is Dead, yes, but we'll see.
I saw the cutscene or the segment in question that PlayStation were like, you can't do that. And I was like, holy fucking shit, I want to play this game.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
That's why it's done really, because it's kind of, I hope it justifies that. Because otherwise it's just there was a game called Agony and it's just tawdry and rubbish. But if it can justify that segment, shall we say, that you have already watched, then yeah, that's my homework for next month.
Incredible. There you go. So that's some horror gaming recommendations. Now we're going to move into TV, some horror TV to recommend. So I'm going to start by recommending a TV show called Archive 81. This is on Netflix. It's 8 episodes. I'm sure most people out there listening have heard of this or may have even watched it by this point, but I thought it's worth recommending. So this is a show created by Rebecca Sonnenschein. It's produced by James Wan. 2 episodes of this were directed by Benson and Moorhead, so it's got a lot of interesting heavyweight horror types behind it. The story is about an archivist hired to restore a collection of tapes, finds himself reconstructing the work of a filmmaker and her investigation into a dangerous cult. So this is another entry into an increasingly popular kind of subgenre. I don't know if we have a name for it yet, a kind of archive horror, something that movies like Broadcast Signal Intrusion kind of dip into. This idea of the story revolving around finding some tapes, finding some footage, but it not actually being found footage, but it actually being more about the characters looking at this footage and trying to decipher it, I suppose. So you've got here this really interesting storyline, this mystery, this guy restoring this old footage. And then, as is often the way these days, it's a little bit like Yellow Jackets. The story kind of is split between 2 time zones. The present day, where we see this man uncovering this archive footage, and then the 1990s, which is when this archive was shot. So we kind of flash back to show a kind of third-person perspective of what he's watching and what is happening to this woman who is making this film, living in this apartment block with strange, witchy, culty, supernatural things going on. It's a really interesting show. It's got some really creepy, spooky moments in it. Louise, you've seen this show already as well, haven't you?
I have. I really liked it. Some people are being really quite mean about Archive 81. I did think it required an editor closer to the end.
It did lose me a little bit in the middle.
Maybe the deletion of an entire episode could have done with. But I did like the way it played with, again, those 2 narratives that you're talking about. I liked both of them. And I loved the fact that kind of supernatural elements meant that they connected with each other in quite unique ways. And there was some really good, quite early in the season, there's some really good scares. I found it really unnerving. I found the soundscape really unnerving. Crank it up, especially if you've got surround sound, because that I found it really got under my skin. And it is a little slow at points, but I thought the performances were great. It ticked all of my boxes. Like, I saw Becky's eyes being like, oh, cult, what's this, ghost? Yes, excellent. And it's exactly that. It's and I think it was based on a podcast series.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's very, even talking about what you were talking about, Brad, is like, it is a little bit creepypasta. There's something quite high concept and basic about it, of let's go through these tapes and every episode he takes the tape which has been burned, and then he treats it very specifically in a very specific way, and then he puts it into a machine, and there's something it's very analog and it's very smooth, and there's something very tactile about its media. So I really dig Archive 81. I know there has been a lot of didn't get along with it at all, but I'm pro it. And there's going to be a second season because it ends on a interesting note as well.
How many episodes?
I think it's 8, right?
Oh, 8's doable.
I think it should have been 6.
It should have been 6.
I did really enjoy. Well, actually, I've got to admit, I haven't finished it yet. I am really enjoying it. It did lose me a little bit in the middle, but generally, like you said, Louise, the sound design is amazing, and it's got some of those classic kind of creepy, scritchy, scratchy. What am I looking at on this grainy image kind of scares, which I love. Love all that shit. Becky, are you going to check this one out?
Yeah, I'll give it a bash. Now you've said cults and Benson and Moorhead, I'm in.
Absolutely. There you go. So that's Archive 81. That's out on Netflix. Let's quickly talk about The Sinner, Series 4, which dropped on Netflix this month. Becky, me and you have watched all seasons of The Sinner, right? And we've messaged throughout them quite a lot. But tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about The Sinner for people that have maybe never even heard of The Sinner, because I feel like not enough people have seen it.
So The Sinner is a thriller series. There are 4 seasons, and each season follows a different story, but they are all based around Detective Harry Ambrose, who is played by Becky's favourite, Bill Pullman, which is my main draw for it, if I'm honest. So it's produced by Jessica Biel. And the first season is like, she's the star of it.
The first season is so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you just watch any of The Sinner, just watch the first season. It's like a why done it. You know what's happened. It's a why done it. The second season is kind of culty and isn't as good, but it's all right. The third season, and this is the main one that we texted through, is absolute gash. Skip it.
Insufferable.
Honestly, awful.
Insufferable.
Skip it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to report that season 4 is my second favourite season. It slots in neatly between 1 and 2. I think it's pretty good, actually. Maybe not quite back to the form of season 1, but I thought it was good. So basically in this one, Detective Harry Ambrose, who's this kind of grizzled, damaged... He likes having his thumbnails trodden on by sex workers and being choked in the bedroom.
He's into some kinky stuff.
You've got Brad's attention.
Brad suddenly looked up.
What?
Honestly, if you want to
I thought you were outing me for a second. I was like, hey, shut the fuck up.
If you want to see Bill Pullman put through the ringer by some like messed up people, then this is the show for you. In this one, he's retired, and him and his girlfriend from season 3, who's played by Susan from Friends, they head off on holiday to a sort of island fishing community. And they're meant to just be on holiday, and he's retired, but obviously a girl goes missing and he cannot fucking help himself. And so gets like sucked back into the job and sort of into the investigation. And there's like, it's very twisty-turny. There's lots of red herrings.
Again, there's a kind of slight sort of folky vibe to this one, right?
Definitely. Sort of coastal folky.
Do I have to have watched 2 and 3?
Not really. Like they're
No.
kind of, each series is like its own little separate horror movie or thriller movie. It's just that they will have Bill Pullman in.
Because I watched 1.
Okay, if you've watched 1 and you understand the sort of the theme around Detective Harry Ambrose being grizzled and messed up, then just dive straight into 4. It's good. Yeah, I liked it. What did you think, Mike?
I like it. I'm only halfway through, but I am enjoying it. I just like the vibe of this show because it is like, on the one hand, your classic procedural catch a serial killer, And then also it's like really weird, woozy,
It's
kind
so
of
weird.
messed up, slightly sleazy. Like there's a lot of like crazy, weird stuff going on with Bill Pullman's character, which kind of gives it a different edge, I think, doesn't it, to the norm? So I'm into it. I really like it as well. So that's The Sinner season 4. That's out on Netflix. And I'll just very briefly talk about Station 11, which is out on Starzplay. I don't know who has Starzplay, but there you go.
Everyone's favourite streaming service.
Yes, Starzplay. So many people recommended this to me, and so I gave it a watch, and it's really good. So it's in some ways it's a hard sell in terms of the sort of initial premise. So it's based on a 2014 novel. Episode 1 begins with people sitting on a subway train and they start coughing, and then people start dying, and basically it's about a global pandemic. And
I've seen it.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's a really quite harrowing first episode as we watch the world begin to end. Then we jump forward 20 years and we're in this kind of post-apocalyptic world, and it's about a group of survivors who are kind of living together in this kind of traveling theatre group, traveling across America, and there's some weird dark shit that happens to them. And the story, again, it's very 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 trendy right now, a little bit like Archive 81, a little bit like Yellow Jackets. It kind of jumps back and forth between two timelines, so pre-pandemic, pre-apocalypse, and post-apocalypse, and you're kind of piecing together what has happened in the 20-year interim to make the world so different and so Mad Maxy, basically, in the sort of in the futuristic stuff. It's really good. Again, I'm only halfway through it. It's created by Patrick Somerville, who was a writer on The Leftovers, and it does have a vibe of The Leftovers, if anyone's seen that. It's really mysterious. It's really weird. It's quite dark and twisted as well, and I'm not entirely sure what is happening, but I'm really into it. And it's got a bit of The Walking Dead to it, and this kind of post-apocalyptic vibe. It's got a bit of Lost to it as well, I suppose, in some ways. But it's great. I'm really into that. So that is Station 11, and that is available on Starzplay. I would massively recommend it. So that's it for television. Let's quickly talk about some physical media. Brad, start us off and tell us a little bit about the McPherson tape.
So there's a running joke that I don't know if you two are privy to it, but every time me and Mike talk about a specific film on one of our Also Ran episodes, within a year or two, it gets a deluxe Session 9, Lake Mungo, Second Sight, Arrow release. It's happened about 5 times, including this one. Including this one.
Yeah. And we never get sent a free copy. We never get asked to do a commentary track on any of these,
it's
but
bullshit.
it's fine. It's fine.
But the McPherson tape is under an hour long, which I think is succulently beautiful. It's an OG found footage movie that basically what happened was I talked about this on the Alien Also Ran, so I'll be nice and succinct. But basically the film was destroyed in a fire when the distributors bought it. So then the director sold VHS bootlegs of his own movie via email in 2003. And then everyone thought it was real footage because it didn't have any title credits or anything. And it kind of went a bit, like early internet viral. And now it was on Shudder, but now I think it's Indicator have released a special edition of it. And I obviously haven't been sent a free copy. Indicator.
For God's sake.
They didn't know we were doing this. I don't really know why we're blaming them.
Good point.
Good point. But it's really, it's boring, and then it's not boring.
Brilliant. Well, great for a film that's less than an hour long.
Yeah, half of it's boring,
fine.
And then half of it's good.
So there you go. So that's the McPherson tape. Let's talk a little bit about another physical release, the Children of the Corn trilogy box set from Arrow. Now, Louise, who better to talk to us about the Children of the Corn movies than Louise Blaine?
Do you know what? Stevie Webb, when he asked me if I would do this Children of the Corn series with him, actually zoomed me to ask. And I think he zoomed me to ask so that it would have been harder for me to say no.
That's amazing.
And I think, and I was like, why isn't he just sending me a text? Oh, this is why he's not sending me a text. Because The Children of the Corn, we've already done our first episode, and it is exclusively available on the Brain Rot Patreon, is the first. I mean, what is being released is Arrow have released the Children of the Corn trilogy limited edition 4K Ultra HD and Blu-ray set, which features 1984's Children of the Corn. And then there is Children of the Corn, and let me get this right because I think the name of it is The Final
Sacrifice.
The Final Sacrifice, which is not The Final Sacrifice because I think there are 12.
There are 12.
But that's not what's in this box set. So there's The Final Sacrifice, and then there's Urban Harvest. So all those three are available in ultra super crispy 4K, and that's if you want to see them in super crispy 4K, because really, if you want to see Children of the Corn in super crispy 4K, you'll just read the Stephen King novella, see it in your head, and then you'll never have to see it again. Because actually,
surely the best way of seeing these films is on a 9-inch television off a built-in VHS
on a Betamax or something.
Yeah, if you must watch it, that's how you should watch it. Recorded off the TV in one of those weird space-looking VHS blank tapes. Because I understand that there is a massive fondness for these movies, and also I'd completely forgotten it was Linda Hamilton that was.
I like
original.
the first one.
It's really interesting. It is fun. There's a whole lot of weird stuff about people finding cars that are covered in corn, entire schoolrooms that are covered in corn for no real reason, but the corn's been there, so it must be scary. It's a strange set of films, but if you want to watch it in, pixels richer than your eyes can see, have at it, because I think it's 70 quid and out now.
You should have got me to talk about this, because that's fucking rubbish.
Brad, are you a fan?
Yes!
Oh.
Interesting, though. I think the first one sucks and is crying out for a remake.
Do you know what? I'll agree there. Totally is. Is.
Crying out for an Ari Aster Midsommar remake.
In the Tall Grass wanted to be a bit Children of the Corn. That would have been...
Yeah.
But 2 and 3... fucking rule. I won't have a bad word said against 2 or 3.
Do you know what, Brad? I haven't got to them yet, so I will...
when you get there.
Okay.
When you get there.
I have seen a scene involving an electric wheelchair, I think is in 2, right? And I've also... It's the third one that takes place in a city, like Corn in the city, Corn goes to Manhattan kind of vibe, right?
Yeah, they jumped that shot quite early. And so the second one has got an amazing death with a house that's on stilts. Good stuff, I promise you. And the third one, Screaming Mad George did the special effects.
Oh.
So they are gloopy AF. Really good. Like, they're both fun. The first one ain't fun. It's really boring and shit.
I like it. So imagine the fun that I'm going to have with 2 and 3.
Well, I'll tell you what you could do. You could pick up the 4K box set. Available now through Arrow.
Although
there you go.
There is a documentary on here called Corn in the USA, and that is good enough for the whole thing.
Incredible. Well, there you go. So that's the Children of the Corn.
Give me a Springsteen pun and I'm in.
Exactly. So let's move on to another physical media re-release. Don't Go in the House. Brad?
Yeah, Don't Go in the House is a video nasty that has now been lovingly restored by Arrow. Currently available on Arrow Player, so if you don't want to take the plunge from the physical media, it is available to stream right now. 2 versions of the film. Obviously. Gotta have that, haven't you?
Of course.
It's a Psycho ripoff to a certain degree. Boy's mother dies. He decides to turn the house. He's like, what can I do? As a psychically tormented boy who's kind of got mummy issues, I will turn one of the rooms in the house into a big oven. Ooh. And then I will flamethrower women, just women, in this. Yeah, it hasn't aged well. But a lot of women get incinerated in this room that looks like it's been lined with tinfoil.
H.H. Holmes did that, didn't he? Did he make a giant oven in his murder hotel?
Well, there you go. That's maybe what
maybe it was a miniature one. Maybe it was a little one. I think H.H. Holmes certainly did something quite inventive with a giant incinerator.
There you go. Well, if you want to pick up a crisp physical media version of Don't Go in the House, that's out now, apparently.
It's out now.
I kind of do.
Yeah, Becky's keen. So now we're going to move into a segment on new horror movies out in cinemas. Because, guys, cinemas do still exist. So let's find out what is coming out in cinemas. There's probably only one major movie of note worth mentioning right now, and that is Studio 666. I've seen this. Am I the only one to have seen this? Brad, have you seen Studio 666 yet?
I'm seeing it Thursday.
Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm the only one who's seen it then. So, Studio 666 is... It's written by and starring Dave Grohl and all of the Foo Fighters. The story, as described on IMDb, legendary rock band Foo Fighters move into a mansion steeped in grisly rock history to record their much-anticipated 10th album. So this is one of the worst things I've ever seen in my whole life. I can't think of a single positive thing to say about this. So it's... The Foo Fighters made this during the pandemic, right? And it kind of feels like they were bored. They wanted to make something for a laugh with their mates. And so they did. And that's great. Good for them. But we all had to sit and endure it. To be fair, some people have liked this film more than me. I've seen people on the Facebook group, the Evolution of Horror discussion group, say that they quite enjoyed it. So that's great. Good for them. I'm glad that some people have got more out of it than I did. I thought it was one of the most insufferable things I've ever seen. There is a great tradition of kind of death metal horror films out there, right? Whether it's, The Devil's Candy, Lords of Chaos, Deathgasm. There's some great stuff out there. Just go and rewatch any of those rather than watching this movie. This movie is, and Dave Grohl and his mates are clearly horror fans, and they are kind of drawing upon some of their favorite horror movies, as well as some of these death metal movies. It's also, there's shades of Evil Dead, Poltergeist, The Shining, all these other things, but it's so appallingly made. It's badly acted, it's badly directed, the dialogue is so cringeworthy that I wanted to turn myself inside out. The banter between members of the Foo Fighters as they kind of joke/brag about their own, favourite hits of theirs, and it's just awful. I'm assuming it must have had a bit of money behind it, but it looks like it's been made for about £5. Like the CGI, the practical effects are terrible, which is a shame, again, because there is some grisly slashery gore in this, but even the gore looks it looks like it was made on iMovie. It's just, everything about this film is absolutely abhorrent. Becky, you warned me about this because you even just saw a trailer for it and thought that it looked terrible, right?
Yeah, Jill and I went to see Scream, the new one. I finally got to see it. Can you believe I managed to avoid all spoilers and I only saw Scream about a fortnight ago?
That's incredible.
It's some sort of horror miracle. So we saw the trailer for Studio 666, and that phrase that you just used, cringe yourself inside out. I mean, Jill and I were... like, I could barely look at the screen. It was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen. That
was just the trailer.
That was just the trailer. And I could have told you all of the stuff that Mike's just said. The script's bad, the acting's bad, the direction's bad, the effects are bad. You can just see it. It rolls off the trailer. So, but like you, I've seen so much positivity on the internet. So again, it's found an audience and good on them or whatever, but fuck no.
And I actually don't hate... I like the Foo Fighters. I've seen them live, and the weird thing is as well, is that they've made some great stuff in terms of music videos in the past. Like, I would say that the music video for Learn to Fly is better than the whole of this film. It's better quality, it's better acted, it's better produced. God, I wish I could think of something good to say about it. John Carpenter was involved.
He did the soundtrack, didn't he? He
did the soundtrack, and he makes a cameo appearance as well. And there are many cameos of friends of Dave Grohl in this film as well that make you go, what the fuck? A little bit. Do you know what it's a bit like? Spice World, except Spice World was actually better.
We liked Spice World.
But you know how Spice World was basically like, let's just make a film about ourselves, starring ourselves, and we'll get all of our famous mates to come and be in it. Doesn't really matter if it's got a story or if it's any good. You're just watching us be the Spice Girls. That's kind of what this is, but with a bunch of dudes in their 50s.
And annoyingly, they've done it in the horror genre, so you had to watch it.
Exactly. Yeah, I had to endure it. So thanks for that. So there you go. So that's Studio 666. That's the only new horror release in cinemas that we're going to be talking about this month. Hopefully there'll be some better stuff in the future. So let's move on to... Now, this is quite unheard of for this podcast. The next section is going to be non-horror new releases, okay? So we're going to start recommending some other stuff that we've watched that we'd recommend from outside of the horror genre. So, Bradley, why don't you start us off and tell us a little bit about Jackass Forever?
If cinema is meant to elicit emotional response and reaction, then Jackass Forever is the purest example of cinema that has ever existed.
Yeah. It's we talked about this in the pub after we saw it, didn't we? But we both said, like, if you want to talk about visceral extreme cinema, there's nothing better.
No further.
Like, I had to look away 2 or 3 times in this film, but I also laughed a lot. It's really good. Really, really good. And amazing to watch with an audience too, I think, right?
I was amazed at the things that a penis can do. I've got one, and I didn't know it could do half the things that they do to it.
The penis trauma is
I can't believe it.
Unreal. I don't think the cast of this film have working penises anymore. Surely after everything,
they can't.
No.
Nah.
No. But it's great fun. So that's Jackass Forever, transgressive cinema at its finest. That's out in cinemas. The Batman. This is a movie that people are talking about a lot right now. It's out this weekend, 4th of March, in cinemas. Brad, I think it's just me and you who have seen this. Quickly give us your thoughts on The Batman.
It's cringy as fuck.
Yeah, you weren't a fan. I was a bit more of a fan, but the problem I had with it is that it's 3 hours long. It's very, very long. So this is like a brand new Batman, story. Doesn't belong to the Batfleck timeline or any of the other timelines we've seen in this last 10 years. It's like started again. We've got Arpat playing Batman, and a sadistic serial killer called the Riddler begins murdering key political figures in Gotham, and Batman is forced to investigate the city's hidden corruption with the help of cat burglar Selena Kyle, played by Zoe
I've seen
Kravitz.
it. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, it rings a bell, doesn't it?
People keep talking about comparisons to Seven and Saw. Can you?
Yeah, there is this quite fun. This is one of the things I do like about it. And it's one of the things that I know Batman fans have been wanting for a long time. That Batman as a character originally was supposed to be this kind of detective, right? He was supposed to be like the world's greatest detective, and this is the first Batman film really that I can think of that actually plays out like an actual detective story. Like, there's not big action set pieces really in the same way as there have been with previous ones. And the Riddler being this proper dark, sadistic serial killer who puts his victims through these traps and challenges, and he's kind of teasing the cops and kind of leaving clues and all that kind of thing. So it does feel like you're watching Seven or Saw in places as well. And some of that stuff I thought was really good, but it's wrapped up in this really bloated, really self-serious kind of emo, it's just like there's not a single moment of levity in the whole thing. It just takes itself so seriously.
It's accidentally funny quite a lot of times.
Oh.
Yeah, it is. Like the kind of grizzled voiceover that narrates the whole thing as well. It's a bit of a slog. Again, a lot of people have been really into it. I think some people have loved it and said it's their, one of their favorite Batman films in decades and stuff. So again, it's kind of dividing people. And there's stuff about it that I really liked. I just think it should have been like a 90-minute thriller rather than a 3-hour bloated mess, basically.
It thinks it's so clever though, and it annoys me that it thinks it's like it's so smugly satisfied with the fact that it's doing some kind of dark neo-noir angle that it doesn't think to actually add any impetus to this stuff. They just does it. Riddler is such a pastiche rip-off of the Zodiac that it's becoming it's like a farce, like a parody of how much he is like Zodiac. Then Penguin looks like and acts like Jake LaMotta from Raging Bull to the point of distraction. Selena Kyle is horrifically underwritten to the point where she's like, I don't need no help, but also help me at all available opportunities. And then there's some of the stuff between them two, from a romance perspective, is so forced, jarring, and unearned. The film is really concerned with Batman, but really does not give a fuck about Bruce Wayne as a character. He's just a fucking sad emo Tumblr 2008 fucking Tumblr boy. He's got nothing to do. All he does is look suspicious and moody when he's Bruce Wayne. When he's Batman, he's like, I'm Batman. I'm gonna fucking...
Has he got that special Batman voice that
No, he doesn't even change his voice. And this is what annoys me about Batman. It's so obviously Robert Pattinson or Bruce Wayne. How does, he's got really distinct eyes for a start, and he's got a very distinct jawline, and he doesn't even do the whole, where's Rachel? Doesn't do that. He's just like, hi, I'm Bruce Wayne. And then he's like, hi, I'm Batman. The same voice. Like, how do you not know it's him? It's great. I really liked it. Go sit.
I did like Paul Dano, though, as the Riddler. I thought he gave a great performance. He gave the sort of performance, he brought the sort of tone that I wanted. He brought a bit of fun to it. He's really kind of scenery chewing. He really goes for it and has some fun with it. And everyone else just takes this film so seriously, but I loved him. I could have done with more of him. So anyway, that was The Batman. I thought it was all right. Brad was not a fan. That's out in cinemas right now. Becky, are you going to go see this one?
Probably not at the cinema, but I'll watch it when it comes. I'll watch it when I can watch it for free and when I've got a 3-hour afternoon.
Louise?
I might even be tempted to home premiere, but I don't think I want to see it. I don't want to go to the cinema and sit for the 3 hours, because it ends up like a 3.5 hour slog of sitting through the additional. Because the thing is, if you sit through trailers and other fine, great, it's all part of the 1.5 hour experience. But when you tack that onto a 3 hour serious, no. Mm.
Can I just do a quick public service? Don't stay for the stinger.
Oh, I was going to ask about that because I got the fuck out of there as soon as the credits started rolling. You stayed? I
stayed like a trooper through everyone trying to steal as many free packets of Batman Oreos as was possible.
There was a pack of Oreos on every single seat. It was absurd, but yes.
Yeah. There is a stinger right at the very death, and it is complete. It summed up the film for me. It's the most fucking pointless thing. Don't stay for it. I'm telling you.
Is it, look, we're making a sequel?
No, not even that. Don't watch the stinger, I promise you.
There you go. So that is The Batman. Another movie I want to talk about, which I saw and just thought was incredible, heartbreaking movie, but incredible, is a new documentary called Flee. This is out in cinemas, and I believe it's also out on Curzon Home Cinema right now. This is a multi-Oscar award-nominated documentary from Danish filmmaker Jonas Rasmussen, and it's this incredibly engrossing true story. The documentary maker is basically interviewing a man called, who he calls in this film Amin, but he wants to remain anonymous. And Amin is telling the story of his life. He's now living in Denmark. He's about to marry the love of his life, but he's had a very difficult time getting there. And what he then does for the first time, he reveals his life story to this documentary maker, how he grew up in Afghanistan. He had to escape across the border. He became a refugee with his family. He moved to Russia. Then he had to move on from there. He had all kinds of horrific things happen to him as he tried to cross various borders and escape to a life of safety. He's also a gay man, and obviously grew up in a world where he couldn't really live the life he wanted to live as well. So it's a sad story. It's a difficult story. It's heartbreaking, but there's also something quite uplifting about the human spirit in this film. And it also feels, especially right now with everything going on in the world, it feels like quite an important film to watch. And what's really wonderful about this documentary is because this man, Amin, wants to remain anonymous, we never actually see him in the documentary. The entire documentary is animated. The interviews in the present day are animated, and then all of the flashbacks. And it's this beautiful film filled with these gorgeous animations, this amazing, incredible music. Stylistically, it's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. The interviews are so compelling and engrossing. The story's just incredible. I mean, it's the sort of thing that you wouldn't even believe if it was written for a film, you know, but it's true. So it's a really incredible piece of work. I loved it. It's called Flee. And also it's one of the first ever movies, I believe, to be nominated for Best Documentary, Best Animated Feature, and Best Foreign Language Feature at the Oscars, because I suppose there's not many movies out there that have crossed over into all three of those categories.
It's got to do at least one of them. That was the thing I was going to say, because unfortunately, a film I've been desperate to see, but has so far evaded me. But I've heard really, 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 really good things. But yeah, it's really interesting that it is literally like made Oscar history with these 3 nominations.
Yeah,
it's quite cool.
Amazing. I really hope it takes something home.
And are those nominations one of the ones that are going to be shown? Which nominations are they? Because how many? Because they're not showing 8, are they?
I imagine Best Animated will be shown because that's like Disney and stuff, you know. I mean, sadly, I think Encanto will will win that over Flea, but I'm sure it will get mentioned there on the show itself. So that's Flea, and then we've got a couple more to quickly mention here. Death on the Nile. This is the Poirot. This is the Kenneth Branagh Poirot film, right? Brad, you're the only one that's seen this. Tell us about Death on the Nile.
Of course, I'm the only fucking one that's seen it. My girlfriend is a big Agatha Christie head. So she asked, and with her, if she's asked to go to the cinema, you have to snap her hand off and they'll be like, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's fine.
Is it better or worse than Orient Express?
It's better than Orient Express, but marginally.
The thing that people keep telling me about is how Armie Hammer is in this, and they do they make so much effort to not ever show him or frame him out or not do a close up on him at all times in the film.
They're like, forget about the cannibal bits.
He's not
and
there.
Also, the thing is, it ruins the movie because you're like, he did it. Yeah. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter what it is. He did it.
He did it. So there you go. That's Death on the Nile, and then we've got a couple of re-releases, some classics coming back to cinemas. And Becky, this is good timing because you've actually recently rewatched these movies, haven't you? The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. Godfather is celebrating its 50th anniversary this month, so it's back in cinemas, and so is the sequel. Tell us about the Godfather films. Oh, is the third one out as well? Because I couldn't see.
But they call it Godfather Coda because they want people to forget it's Godfather 3.
I've still never seen the Godfather Part 3.
I don't think I have.
Me neither.
No,
I've got. We've got the same box set, Mike, haven't we? And neither of us have ever.
I've never dipped into it. Maybe I'll finally make the effort to do that. We were going to try and watch it together, Becky, weren't we?
We were. I was gonna. It's still on offer.
Yeah.
Come round, you and Rihanna. I'll make pasta.
Oh, lovely.
And we can sit and chat our way through The Godfather Part 3.
Perfect.
Louise, you're welcome round mine to watch Children of the Corn, The Final Sacrifice.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks.
Beautiful.
Pot noodle.
Not corn on the cob.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, that would make more
gotta
sense. That doesn't go in an air fryer.
Pick up a KFC on the way and it's all good.
Becky, The Godfather, it's all right, isn't it?
It's all right. Weirdly, I don't know if it is weirdly. I think on the whole it is. I prefer 1 to 2.
Yeah, me too. I think that is the minority opinion, isn't it?
Well, everybody talks about the Godfather Part 2 as being, the one that shows that sequels can be better than their originals. Well, that and Empire Strikes Back, but and Aliens. No, wait, I'm talking bollocks. So. Terminator 2. Yeah, no, never mind. So yeah, Godfather 1 and 2, Francis Ford Coppola, Corleone's. They're in the cinema. Go and see them. I watched them both on Blu-ray before I knew that this was happening, but maybe I will go and. I mean, I expect somewhere like the PCC's doing a double biller. That'll be long, but it'll be fun.
I'll tell you what, I've seen the first one in cinema before, I think at the BFI, and it is incredible on the big screen, and especially with that sound up as well. Like, that scene in the restaurant, the scene in the restaurant, and there's the sound of the subway train and all of that stuff going on in the background. Like, it's so good, and it's amazing to watch on a big screen, actually. Yeah.
And that iconic score. Yeah. I mean, just do it.
Yeah. Just do it.
I'm going tomorrow.
Oh,
are you?
Yeah, so I'm going to see Godfather 1 tomorrow and Godfather 2 on Sunday.
Oh, delightful.
That's good.
I'm going recliner Odeon on Sunday.
Are you going to go for Frankie and Benny's?
Yes.
Pizza Express 2 for 1.
Oh,
okay.
Beaut.
Nice.
Do you know what I mean? Meerkat movie. Oh, no, don't use that anymore.
Don't use that anymore. What about Coda? What about Godfather Part 3? You going to go see that?
I've never seen Godfather Part 2 or 3.
Oh, that's great. Oh, well, I can't wait to hear what you think of 2. So that's kind of it. We've covered all of the new releases. Now we're going to finish with a kind of quick fire round listing off some old classic titles that are now available on various different streaming platforms. Okay, so these are old classics. You may have never seen some of these classics before. You may have seen them before, but just are dying to give them a rewatch. So we're now going to list for you a whole bunch of titles that are available right now for you to watch watch at home. And we're going to do this, guys. We're going to do this super quick fire.
This is a challenge.
Yeah, let's say 15 seconds on each of these films.
Succinct.
Nice and succinct. So here we go. We're going to start off with Louise telling us all about Freaky.
It's on NowTV now. It stars Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton as a teenage girl and serial killer who gets switched around by a knife. Chaos ensues. It's really bloody and fun. Go.
Yes. And it's fucking great.
Yeah.
It's fucking great. All right. Also out on Now TV is The Forever Purge. Brad?
The 5th installment of the of the Purge series, the series that likes to take on racial issues but is definitely written by white people. Is available now. This one is actually not as bad as the last couple, so it's got cowboy stuff in it. There's a man on a horse and he's weird.
Okay,
awful.
good.
It's not awful.
Really?
It's really not. It's
literally
fine.
better.
The
It's
last
solid.
one was really bad. The first Purge was the last one. That I thought that one was terrible, but maybe I'll give The Forever Purge a go. It's good to know.
Anna de la Reguera is amazing.
She's incredible.
She's great.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good to know. Also out on Now TV is In the Earth. This is the new movie from Ben Wheatley. It came out during lockdown. He shot and directed it entirely during the COVID pandemic. It's kind of a weird folk horror with a bit of kind of 70s, Nigel Neal sci-fi thrown in there. It's got loads of disgusting body horror. Reece Shearsmith. It's weird. It's trippy. It's creepy. Loved it. One of my favourite films of last year. That's In the Earth. That's out on Now TV. Next up on MUBI is Funny Games. Brad, tell us about Funny Games.
Michael Haneke's seminal fucking bad neighbor trip, Funny Games, and its remake are both coming to remake versus original series available on MUBI, both directed by Haneke, who is an evil cunt of a director who likes to really upset people, like Lars von Trier, but a bit artier if you ask me. First one's brilliant, second one also quite good, and it's good to see Tim Roth, suffer.
Yeah, the remake's actually all right, isn't it, really?
It's all right.
For what it is.
Yeah.
That's Funny Games. That's out on MUBI. Out on Shudder. There's loads of stuff out on Shudder. First of all, City of the Living Dead. Becky, tell us about City of the Living Dead.
It's Lucio Fulci, first of the Gates of Hell trilogy. A psychic has a vision of a priest hanging himself, and it's opened a portal to hell, and then there's a journalist and he tries to close it. There's loads of teleporting zombies and
people vomiting up their entrails.
A couple of iconic set pieces. Yeah, brilliant. Fucking amazing. Watch it.
Incredible film. That's City of the Living Dead. Also out on Shudder this month, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Brad?
Dario Argento. It's another one of his classic Jarlos. I can never always say it. I always sound Australian when I'm like, Jarlo. It's really good. It's your normal black glove killer. You can't go wrong. There's going to be a bottle of J&B whiskey in it. Have a good time with it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. That's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. It's a good one. Also out on Shudder this month, Battle Royale. One of my favourites. Battle Royale. Amazing. Bunch of kids get put on an island and they literally have to kill each other off. And that's it. It's really fun, really disturbing, really gruesome. Some amazing characters, just some incredible set pieces. It's a film that I could talk about for hours, but I won't. But check out Battle Royale. That's out now on Shudder. Becky, have we got you talking about The Wretched, or did you say you didn't want to talk about The Wretched?
No, I'll talk about it, but I don't like it.
Okay, fine. Becky.
Got 15 seconds to tell us why you don't like it.
Becky, tell us about The Wretched.
I'm pretty sure it's racist. A troubled teenage boy lives next door to a young family and discovers the mum is possessed by a demon that feasts on children. So he sets out to investigate it and battle the evil. There's creepy J-horror-esque women and folk horror imagery and a sort of modern YA Rear Window meets the witch thing going on. I didn't love it.
I really liked The Wretched. Louise, didn't you like The Wretched as well?
So I think on first viewing, I really enjoyed The Wretched, but I decided that I was going to do some watching for this program, for this podcast. Then started watching The Wretched and was like, I was 10 minutes in, I was like, I've seen this. I was like, maybe I switched it off. And then I went all the way through it, buffered all the way through it and reminded my brain that I had actually, in fact, already seen it. And I don't think I hated it the first time, but it completely left my brain. I mean, we're talking rear window. It went out the window completely. Like, it was just gone. It was a dot. So that, and also the interesting thing about that movie is it was one of the #1 movies in the US in 2020 because it was the only film showing in drive-thrus. Yes. So it's like a #1 box office smash because it was the only movie to be shown in the country.
Amazing. Well, there you go.
I've never seen it.
Oh, Well, I thought it was good. Becky thought it was shit. Louise didn't remember
I'm
it.
pretty sure. I just think it's got an issue. I think it's got a real issue with women of colour.
Oh.
I and it's just, bleh. I didn't like it.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's The Wretched. That's out on Shudder. Oh, God, this is bad.
Speaking of things we didn't like.
Hell, Rob Zombie's 31 is now out on Shudder. Brad, tell us about it.
If you want to see 5 carnival workers that are kidnapped and held hostage in an abandoned hell-like compound, they will be forced to participate in a violent game, the goal of which is to survive 12 hours against a gang of sadistic clowns. Then let me tell you, there's probably another film that isn't this that you should watch.
Very good. Very good. It's terrible. That's Rob Zombie's 31. That's out on Shudder. Also out on Shudder, VHS 2. I liked this one. This is, it's just another VHS film, basically. So the kind of found footage anthology style. It's got some really fun segments in it. I would say probably the highlight for me and for a lot of people is the Gareth Evans segment called Safe Haven, which is really scary and phenomenally directed. I think it's worth watching VHS 2 basically just for that segment, but the whole film is great fun. That's VHS 2. That's out on Shudder. And there's also VHS Viral, which is now out on Shudder. Brad?
Let me tell you, if you like VHS 2, you'll hate VHS Viral. It's definitely the weakest of the series. The new VHS absolutely fucking owns. The VHS 2's cool. VHS 1 kind of sucks, but it's all right. This one is unilaterally terrible.
All right, well, I'm glad I haven't seen that. I'll give that a miss. Next up, I'm going to talk about Cujo. This is the Stephen King classic. It is now out and available to watch on Netflix. This is the 1983 adaptation starring Dee Wallace about the rabid St. Bernard's dog who attacks a family. There's a really intense sequence in a car. We've got children in peril. It's classic, weird, coked up Stephen King. Great film, great monster movie. Great story. That's Cujo. That's available right now on Netflix. Right, next up, it's Hagazusa. Becky, tell us all about Hagazusa.
The German-Austrian film about a young woman and her less than brilliant life secluded in the mountains. There's plague and persecution and sexual assault and hallucinations and cannibalism. It's bleak, but it's very beautiful and has a gorgeous visuals and an amazing score. I love it. I've got the beautiful Arrow Blu-ray of it. It's fit, but it's now out on Shudder for your enjoyment.
It's a real mood film, that film, isn't it?
Isn't it?
It's got such a vibe. The last film I'm going to mention is The Lesson, which is out on Shudder. I saw this at Fright Fest way back in the day. 2 schoolboy delinquents learn a lesson that they will never forget when a teacher at the end of his tether decides to abduct them. And it's very much one of those Eden Lake horrible schoolboys kind of thing, but it's sort of a revenge tale where the teacher gets revenge on the schoolboys and tortures them for a solid 90 minutes in a classroom and treats it like a lesson, basically. It's a bit rubbish, but if you want to watch something really low budget and a bit grimy and a bit gross and a bit visceral, then sure, give it a watch. That's on Shudder. That's called The Lesson. And we did it.
Not with a bang, but with a whimper.
There's a lot of titles there, a lot of recommendations. I'm going to finish by asking each of you if you could only recommend one film across all of those streaming services that we've talked about. If somebody's like, I've only got time to watch one movie this month, what should you recommend? Becky, let's start with you because you look really ready.
Yeah. That was not my face. That is not what my face said. Oh, God. In the Earth.
Oh, nice. Louise?
I'm gonna say Freaky because it's loads of fun.
That's a good one. Brad?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I'm gonna say Hellbender for something new and interesting.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that's so good. That should have been mine.
You went first.
Oh, guys, well, that's what a joy it's been to do this. And same time next month, hopefully. So
do it.
in the meantime, just tell everyone where they can find you discussing more movies out there online. Becky?
Find me on Twitter, best place at Bunny Dark.
And Brad?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hadbranson and on Letterboxd for some wonderful takes at Splatterpatter.
And Louise?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as shiny_demon. And now I feel worse because obviously the shiny demon was played by Dave Grohl in that Tenacious D video. So suddenly I feel like my username has been tainted by Studio 666.
Your name alone was better than that whole film, Louise.
Thanks,
so
Mike.
don't worry about it. Guys, thank you very much.
Fresh Blood.
And that's it for episode 1 of Fresh Blood. Thank you so much for listening, and a huge thank you to all of my fantastic guests, Louise Blaine, Brad Hanson, and Becky Dark. Really hope you guys enjoyed that, and don't forget, if you want to continue listening to monthly episodes of Fresh Blood and get up-to-date streaming, cinema, and gaming recommendations, then you need to subscribe to our Patreon at a $5 level. Patreon.com/Evolution of Horror. Sign up for $5 per month and you will get access to Fresh Blood and literally hundreds of other bonus episodes. Thank you so much for listening, and join us again soon for another bonus episode of the Evolution of Horror.